And that was confirmation that this has definitely been a problem for a really long time. It's been holding me back in my workouts and my training plans for years. Hello and welcome back to the channel and another ultra cycling related video. If you are subscribed already, then thanks for coming back. And if it's your first video, I'm Andy. I'm an ultra cyclist on the south coast of England, and I make videos about ultra training, kit and adventures. So subscribe. It is a beautiful day in the South Downs National Park. Out of my weekly endurance ride and 1 week closer to my main event. It's coming quickly. I'm racing 4,000k from Italy to the Netherlands in July. That's gonna fly by. Getting a bit ahead of myself. Today, I've got about 7 hours, I think, something like that. For my 10 hours that I do over the weekend, let's try and hit 7 today. Will leave me with 3 tomorrow. Some friends coming to visit, so trying to work around that. Get up early today and tomorrow and get the hours in. But it is a beautiful day, so I'm not struggling to be out here, that's for sure. But I hope you're all well and getting out on your bikes. One thing I've noticed today, the roads are much busier with bikes. It's bizarrely warm and I feel like for a change, I'm kind of overdressed a bit. I just shed my gloves, shed my buff. I'm just about feeling cool enough now. And so far today, I spent about 3 hours with my mate Rob, riding around the coast. And I've got about an hour and a half left today, roughly. So I thought I'd head up into the South Downs National Park and enjoy the scenery a bit. And whilst I'm out, I've had a good few weeks, made some real progress in a few areas. And one of which I really want to talk about because it's been a bit of a roller coaster. I've been going through the same process for the last few years. Train hard for the winter, and then get out in the spring and start to do some endurance riding. After having some issues recently, I got in contact with my coach, had a chat with him about some issues I've been having getting through my workouts. And it's funny how I haven't used a coach ever, couldn't afford it. But now I have a coach, I realise how invaluable he is. Essentially, after speaking to Giovanni the last few weeks, trying different things, I'm becoming aware of glaring errors I've been making for the last several years. Things I've just accepted and warning signs I didn't really understand how to interpret. I would say quite happily, confidently, I'm a hard worker. I can see from my Whoop, from the numbers, I'm not bragging, I don't brag, but according to Whoop, I'm in the top 1% of strain builders on the whole platform. So I put in a lot of effort, and that goes back to well before I started working with a coach. The amount of hours I do, the amount of energy I put into my workouts, I built a lot of strain, but I accepted over the years that pretty much based on what I knew, I think I was basically operating at my maximum potential for what I could achieve on my own. I hadn't given up on the idea of potentially unlocking more. I was also reasonably happy with my fitness level anyway. I go through the same cycles every year, work really hard through the winter. When spring comes and I'm let loose on the roads, have lots of fun, do lots of long rides, essentially I accepted that fitness, strength and endurance, you can't really have all three. But as soon as I get out and start riding really long days, I understand what catabolism is and then just lose the gains I made in the winter fairly soon after. And based on my understanding as an amateur, and keep that in mind when you watch these videos, you're watching an amateur and a regular guy just trying to be better. I don't know it all, far from it. So that was my understanding. As soon as I come out and start riding endurance again, I'll lose all the power. And I just accepted that. And I realise now it ties in with another issue where I'd always in the past do a test, an FTP test or a ramp test, work out what my zones are. The last few times I've done that, I've got my test result, happy with the number, start to train, and I can't quite hit the zones and keep the workouts up. It's just a bit too much. So at that point, I just think I got lucky in the test, really good test result. I'm obviously not that strong. And then what comes after that is just not a lot of fun, really. Failing workouts, feeling miserable that I'm not getting on top of the zones, just feeling a bit miserable that I'm not completing the workouts and getting on top of the zones. And once again, being an amateur, I come to the conclusion that I got lucky on the test and that's the way it is. I'm going to go into a bit of detail on this video and show how over the last month or so, I'm pretty sure I've got to the root of the issue and overcome it. You have to also bear in mind as well, coaching's new to me. I'm 3 months in almost to being coached. I'm riding much bigger volumes than I ever have in the winter. So this bump in the road came a few weeks ago. So while it is fairly early days, I'm pretty sure I've got to the bottom of the issue and I'm pretty excited with what it means moving forwards. So while this is a bit of a waffly intro, I want to give the background to the issue and how serious it was for me before I get into what the hell it is and how I fixed it. So the small chance, if you're one of those 1 or 2 people who occasionally complain, it took you 5 minutes to get to the point, there is a method to my madness. I try sometimes with these videos, I'm always trying to grow and be better. And all I'm trying to do is propagate information that I found useful on the basis that maybe people watching this will find it useful at some point in the future. This isn't TikTok, it's not a 30-second video. And if you made it this far, then you're probably genuinely interested in improving yourself, so welcome aboard. I'm not going to drag this on forever, don't worry. Essentially this is around fueling, calories, macros, timing of fueling, how you can be the hardest worker in the room and still making barely any progress. To the best of my knowledge, I thought I pretty much had it cracked, and believe me, I really did not. Anyway, I've been out for more than 8 hours now, so as gorgeous as it is out here, I'll see you at home. I'm back home. It's actually a few days since that ride and all recovered, feeling pretty good. And a bit of a funny story, you might find it funny, I didn't. That evening I got home, sat down and chilled out to recover, had a pizza, just chilling on the couch. And I get an email from Training Peaks every day. It gives me a reminder of what I've got coming up the following day. And I saw free ride, 8 hours, and thought, oh, that's odd. That's more than I thought it was gonna be. So I had a little look into the numbers, and I've had a whole bunch of new training put into my schedule recently. And it turns out I've had 10 hours at the weekends for quite a long time. And recently that's been upped to 14 hours. So I was planning 3 hours the following day. It was actually 7. And I did have friends coming to visit, so I had to get up at 5 AM and get out and get the hours done. But it happens, got the hours done. I just had to lie in the following day to try to recover. To put a bit more meat on the bones of this problem, I'll explain a bit of background, how I've treated nutrition for a long time. I did a video not too long ago about nutrition. And it's quite funny looking back how ineffective that really was. I'm a bit weird with food. I'm quite happy to eat the same food for a really long time. So I've eaten the same breakfasts, the same lunches, every meal, the same every day for a really long time. My dinners tend to vary, but the calorie count for those dinners tends to be kind of similar. So I'm eating good foods, but I know based on that, I can work backwards and know roughly what my calorie intake's been every day for a really long time. It's healthy stuff, lots of fruit, natural fats, carbs, not bad food, but looking back, not enough. And I've always trained quite a lot as well. Not quite as much as I train right now with Giovanni, but I would say my weekly hours, especially in the summer, not too dissimilar to what I'm doing at the moment. And I always used to prioritize mainly in the summer, getting a bit smaller, a bit leaner, a bit lighter, and actually I did feel better. The thinner I got generally, the leaner I got, the better I felt on the bike, and I felt like I got a bit stronger in my riding. However, there were still quite a few drawbacks which I kind of glossed over at the time. As I mentioned on that ride, I tend to find in the summer my power tends to drop off, but I do get a bit lighter, and I was kind of always okay with that. Kind of realised now that kind of comes at a cost. Recovery wise, wasn't too bad, but I was tired quite a lot of the time. Sometimes after really big days, the following day, might even get a bit lightheaded. The biggest issue for quite a while now, struggling to get through workouts. So I mentioned I'd do a test, I'd have my zones, start a training plan that I built myself, and it's usually things like sweet spot workouts, 2 times 20 minutes or whatever. Wouldn't do a huge amount of intensity hours like I do now. It's fairly common that I do these tests, fuel well for the test, try to get a good result because I want a high FTP, everyone does. Once I had my FTP, started doing the workout, finding that I kind of blow up. I really shouldn't be because this is coming from a test result. And that stuff I kind of swallowed back then because I'm on my own. But all the while now, I'm being watched by a coach, and in the back of my mind that I want to perform in the workouts, and I also just want to get the most from the training plan that I can get. Recently, starting to have the same issues. My training zones set from a test, crept them up after the test because the test was diabolical. To begin with, felt good. I was getting through the workouts, but just finding every so often they get a bit ropey. I'd get most of the way through the workouts and blow up, and then have to try to drag my butt through the whole thing. Do as much as I could, blow up again, just get through the workout. It's not a good feeling every now and then to feel like I can't complete these workouts. I mentioned it to Giovanni at one point. First time I mentioned it, he said it's fine, you're doing really well, don't worry, everybody struggles every now and then. But when I saw it happening a couple more times, I got in touch with Giovanni to explain how it felt and see if he had any ideas for me. Essentially, the way it felt was quite frustrating. I'd feel like my legs were giving up on me. My heart and lungs felt like they had more to give. I knew my max heart rate roughly. I wasn't getting to my max heart rate, wasn't out of breath. The pain and discomfort in my legs would just build and build to the point where I wouldn't even have a choice in the matter. They just switch off. So I thought originally, maybe all these people that tell me I need to do weights and things, maybe I need to do some weights and strengthen my legs. But actually, speaking to Giovanni, he questioned whether or not my calories were quite enough. He suggested I might want to raise my calorie intake and my carb intake. I can tell you the difference was practically night and day, almost straight away. I increased my calories and my carbs middle of one week, and by the start of the next week, when I sort of dug myself out of the hole a bit, I felt much better. Got through the workouts, absolutely fine, hurt a lot, but I got through them and dragged my way through to the end without stopping. So obviously, to begin with, I think, great, that's fixed the issue. And then just to bolster the argument, inadvertently, I did a bit of a control test the following week. One of the meals that I added to my diet to increase my calories contained a lot of dairy, milk. It turns out I don't think I processed that very well. Without going into too much detail, I wasn't the most pleasant person to live with for that week. So I cut that out straight away. It wasn't really doing me any favors. But then, because I dropped the calories again, didn't have any other food in, stupidly, I just left it for a few days. That's kind of more than I am sometimes. But going back, removing the calories, I realized straight away, the same thing started happening again. Struggling with my workouts, really struggling, and generally through the day, feeling less recovered, really tired. I noticed actually once I increased my calories, I felt way better in myself, more energy, more recovered, happier. And then as soon as I dropped those meals back out again, went back to feeling like trash. So after a week of that, got some more shopping in, changed my meals once again to something that's going to work for my gut, and actually went straight back to feeling good every day, better in myself, getting through the workouts again. And that was confirmation that this has definitely been a problem for a really long time. It's been holding me back in my workouts and my training plans for years. This might be really simple stuff to a lot of you. You might be thinking, what a moron. I can't believe he didn't realise he wasn't eating enough. But to be honest, I was just trying to strike a medium between getting the right kind of nutrition, getting a good amount of calories in, and not getting too fat. Since I increased the calories, I did start to notice I was putting on a little bit more weight, a tiny amount more weight, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Since I started working with Giovanni about 3 months ago, I did notice I was getting slimmer and slimmer. And for someone that's never had a six-pack before, never been particularly lean, I was quite enjoying that, to be honest. But now looking back, I spent 3 months slogging my guts out through these workouts, and I feel like I could have just been getting a bit more bang for my buck. And actually, that goes for the last 3-4 years. So at this point, while I'm feeling a lot better, quite excited to think how much more I might be able to improve if I fuel myself better. I feel good most of the time, and I get through the workouts. I'll build a bit more strain through the sessions because I get through them more cleanly, and I'm pushing for longer. I really hope that generates a bit more fitness. And next on the cards for me, I think, is to really focus on macronutrient splits to make sure I've got the right amount of carbohydrate, protein, and fats in my meals. And I'm also starting to look at nutrient timing, because while I'm cramming in more carbs and more energy on my training days, I'm doing that on my recovery days too. So I have to have a look at whether or not I reduce my calories and carbohydrates on my recovery days and what the best approach is there. So we'll see. There will be more of an update on this. It's fairly early days, but it's clearly been an issue for a long time. But I hope if you're watching this, if you've had similar issues and you haven't clicked in the same way that I didn't, then I hope this helps people to get the most out of their training plans as possible. So looking forwards, these increased hours at the weekends, 14 hours on the weekends instead of 10, that's because I've got a 24-hour event in about 3 weeks. So I think I'll broadcast that as much as possible on Instagram. If you're not already following me there, go and follow me on Instagram. And after that, I'm starting to make plans for Be Hard in Bosnia. And then I really need to start planning my route for Via Race because I've done nothing. Anyway, hope you all have a good week. Enjoy riding your bikes. And I'll see you all on the next one.